so much to tell you about. Today's been insane.
Talk to me.
And I mean this. Things have never been better at Oklahoma State University.
Look at that. The money's just rolling in.
Ever.
You hear the phone call?
You're listening to Idea Charger Radio. Hey there, Success Chargers. It's Scott, and we're back for another episode. And I got to tell you, this one is probably one of the most fun episodes I have done in quite some time. I've got a very special treat for you today. What you just heard was the very beginning of what turned out to be a, let's just call it epic interview with a really good friend of mine, Chris Batchelder. Chris is the president, CEO, big dog, the man in charge of the Oklahoma State University Alumni Association. Now, you think about alumni associations, usually what comes to mind is, oh God, they found me. You know, you go to the mailbox and there's something in there and they're asking for money and they want you to do something and, send them a check. Now, look, I'm a firm believer. When you find something you believe in, a school that you went to, an organization you support, by all means, please share the wealth. If you've been blessed with good fortune in your life, and you can spare a few bucks to help out an organization, you should do it. But what's interesting is that, did you know that the role of the Alumni Association is not necessarily a fundraising function? At some schools it may be part of it, and I'm sure that's part of the equation, but the role of the Alumni Association today is a much more comprehensive organization. What they do is so much more, and it is so directly in line with what we talk about here on the show in terms of what I talk about when I go work with organizations. We always talk about the power of connection. Certainly a place that you went to school and earned a diploma is a place you probably have a lot of memories from. And I hope they're good memories. And, there's an emotional connection for many of us to our schools. I know several years ago at my alma mater, Oklahoma State, there was a gentleman from Dallas that wasn't even on the radar for the foundation, as I understand it. And he just called up one day and said, I have a lot of money I want to donate to the College of Business. They renamed it after him. It was a significant donation, and certainly some great things have happened. They're now building a brand new facility on campus. We're going to hear about that in the interview with Chris. A very famous person who has given a lot of money to my alma mater is T. Boone Pickens, known from the 1980s as being a corporate raider. And then when oil was about, $100 a barrel, he was talking about wind energy. Now that oil's at about $28 a barrel, he's kind of quiet about that right now. But I tell you, when things were good, he was fantastic because we share Oklahoma State as an alma mater, and he has given hundreds of millions of dollars to the university. That's why our football stadium is named after him. He's given a lot of money to help kick off a capital campaign that not only built a fantastic facility, but also went a long way to encourage people to put money aside to help pay for athletic scholarships. Now, we could argue all day long, is athletics where it's at? But I will tell you, folks, that's where the money comes from. My brother works in college athletics, and he'll tell you that, money's an important part of the game. And it brings a lot of visibility to a school. It brings a lot of people in. And it's pretty cool. So, now that I think about it, maybe I should get my brother on the show too. Who knows? All right. Anyway, I'm not going to say too much more here because this interview, as I said, in my words, epic. Just sit back and enjoy this one. Join me and Chris as we sit down to talk about alumni connections. Here we go.
They're actually in Fort Lauderdale, but yeah, that's where they are. Okay.
We'll be in Fort Myers after Christmas.
Enrollment is at an all-time high. It's over 27,000. You wouldn't believe it. I don't know the last time you were back, but you wouldn't believe. They can't build dorms fast enough. It's absolutely insane.
That's great.
Trying to bring down Kerr Drummond.
No!
I know it.
There's so many stories from that.
I know.
And that's just from when I was there.
So listen to this. So there's kind of the process of figuring out what the freshman class is going to look like. You have admits, so there's a ton of applications, and you admit a certain number.
Right.
Then you go into the late spring, and a certain number of those show up to enroll. Okay, so you go through the enrollment process in the summer. And then a certain percentage of those actually make it to the first day of class. And that is sort of how you guess what your freshman class is going to look like. That's how you allocate dorms, all that kind of stuff. They undershot that so badly that they had to reopen Kerr. They had closed Kerr Grummett. They had to reopen Kerr to house 500 additional kids that showed up that weren't. It's crazy. And so President Hargis is just doing an unbelievable job. I mean, just the feel and the vibe on campus right now is just, it hasn't been like that ever. Yeah. But it certainly hasn't been like that since really you and I were in school. I mean, things are going really great.
What do you think that's attributed to?
I think part of it is just his leadership. I'm not going to lie. Part of it is Texas and Texas A&M have gotten so large, right, and they're admitting fewer and fewer in-state kids. Not because they're admitting more out-of-state kids. There's too many kids.
Yeah.
And so we're getting top 10% talent out of Texas, really out of North Texas. Top 10% grads of their classes that can't get in A&M in Texas. Yeah. And we'll gladly take them, and they pay out-of-state tuition. It's incredible. So listen to this. If you have a 24 on your ACT and you have a 3.0 or higher, you can go to Oklahoma State cheaper than you can go to A&M, UT, and Texas Tech in-state. So kids are coming to OSU. Wow. Because they're paying less to go to Oklahoma State and pay out-of-state tuition than they would to pay in-state tuition.
If they stay here.
It's crazy.
Wow.
So 30% of the freshman class this year was from out-of-state. And like 25% of that was from Texas.
Yeah, that's a big change.
It's huge.
Yeah. So what does that do for the feel on campus? What's that doing for the culture, the attitude?
So like sorority, fraternities and sororities are up a third.
Okay.
There's just way more kids getting involved in leadership stuff. I mean, it's homecoming. The week of homecoming this year was huge. I mean, it was record-setting in every way. Yeah. And really, aside from walk-around, homecoming is mostly about the different philanthropy projects, and so it was awesome. And you're just seeing so many more kids, and so in turn, the research getting done. The conversation. OSU is part of conversations nationally now that we never would have thought we'd be part of. So
speaking academically?
Yeah. Okay. So when you think about, just a little land-grant school in the middle of the country.
Right.
In the past couple of years, we've, finished off a $1.3 billion fundraising campaign. There have only been 40 universities in the history of our nation ever raise $1 billion.
In a single campaign.
In a single campaign.
Okay.
If you think about the blue bloods, Michigan, right, Ohio State, Stanford, USC, UCLA, you can start a list that you're going to get to 30 real fast.
Right.
For a school like ours to be on that kind of list, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you've got stuff like unmanned aerial vehicles. We're doing, drone research for the government stuff that, you never would expect a school like OSU to be doing. Yeah. It's great stuff.
Is that tying into the aviation department? It's a
collaboration between aviation, which is housed in the College of Education, and engineering.
Okay.
That's pretty unbelievable. So here's another kind of indication of how things are going. For the first time ever last year, the largest populated major on campus wasn't animal science. It was mechanical engineering.
Wow.
How about that? And again, we're not talking about Georgia Tech here. This is a, land grant school in the middle of the nation. It's pretty cool.
By the way,
And I think the oil boom has probably something to do with it.
this isn't a coincidence. As we sit here, Bleacher Report just confirmed for the 12th time today, Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
It's going to be Oklahoma State versus Ole Miss.
So that's another good story. So sort of in turn, as a tangible result of all this, the association is doing awesome. I mean, we're just absolutely clicking on all cylinders. We've grown staffing-wise, we've grown budget-wise. We're serving the university now in ways that we never thought possible. We're, people are looking to us. People are looking to us for assistance in things that we're happy to help with, like bowl travel.
Right.
Our relationship with the athletic department is fantastic. Coach Holder and I are good friends.
Good.
We talk all the time. I don't think he has very many good friends, so I'm very careful about how I steward that.
Sure.
So we started looking at stuff, and they were getting ready to issue an RFP for an athletic travel partner, and had actually built it and sent it out. And so I went over to see him one day, and I said, listen, I don't know why you guys aren't asking us to collaborate with you on this. I mean, you're limited in your scope. You've got 30,000 ticket holders. That's really the scope of your database.
Right.
Over on the university side, we've got 250,000 in our database. I would think that we could help you get people to games, get people to away games, get people to bowl games, whatever it is you want to do. Plus, I don't know why you're wanting to do it anyway. From an engagement standpoint, that's what we do. You guys are trying to educate student athletes and win championships. It's not fan travel isn't not in your wheelhouse. And he said, you know what, I think you're right. You guys do it. So we took over the RFP, chose a partner, and we're launching today, now, 30 minutes ago, or whatever it was, 2:30, we launched OKStateFanTravel.com. That's going to our first trip is to the Sugar Bowl, which is going to be gigantic.
Yeah.
We've already had, in the first 30 minutes, there were 1,500 people that signed up. So we're going to create now for people going to OSU events an unparalleled travel experience that's going to be anything from all in, ticket, airfare, hotel, bus rides everywhere you want to go, all the way down to, I'm driving down there with my family, I just need a hotel room.
So it's almost like a concierge service.
It is.
If you think of it.
It's going to be awesome.
And I think so it would be more appropriate to think of it as a concierge service versus a travel agency.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this company, Sports Entertainment Travel, they do this for schools all over the country. They had Oregon and Ohio State last year, so they had both of the teams in the championship game. And then they also had Ohio State and Florida State, which which was one of the other four Final Four teams. And so they know what they're doing. These are the kind of people we want to be partnering with. It's going to be great. And so it's just, I think a lot of times people are afraid to ask about stuff.
Right.
I'm not the kind of guy that's afraid to ask about stuff. I think a lot of people wouldn't have gone to the athletic department and said, look, this is misaligned. I think some of our team over there tend to intimidate people.
Yeah. So let me ask you about that because so many of the people that listen to this podcast, I describe it, and you know this because you listen to the show, but you at least you tell me you do. So
I do.
I know you do. I'm giving you a hard time. But for the people that listen, I describe them as that square peg in the round hole, right? And those people are the ones who see opportunity where other people see problems. And one of the things I know I've had to learn is that sometimes to me it just seemed like it's so obvious, why aren't we? And it gets taken the wrong way. And what you just described was there still is a certain amount of tact, there is still a way that you can be innovative, you can push things forward, you can try to do new things. But what you just described, I think, was interesting. You could have gone over there and said, you guys are wrong, this should be us, and picked a fight. Instead, you said, I'm kind of curious, and you asked a few questions.
Yeah.
And you kind of saw the athletic director in this case, right, kind of turn back and go, that does make sense. This is a better partnership. And you looked at it as a partnership. How do you think people could do more of that?
Oh, listen. So to me, these types of conversations, and call them critical conversations, call them whatever you want. We have them all the time, right? It's all about how you approach it. Okay, so, and I'm not saying it's wrong to go in aggressively on occasion.
Okay.
I mean, there may be a time where you need to make your point.
Put your foot down.
But you have to know how to do it, and that all comes down to relationships. And it comes down to how you present what you're trying to say. Okay? If you just go over and say, you're wrong, I'm right, this is how we have to do it, that's not going to work. But if you've done research, if you can present your case, if you can present, what you think the results of what you're trying to get done are going to be, if you can talk about process, if you can talk about, who's going to be on your team as you do it, and you go in from a knowledgeable platform. See, I struggle with this. I'm going to be honest. There's times when, because I think you and I are kind of built the same way. Yeah. I'm such an emotional guy. I'm passionate. I'm loud. I'm energetic. And so there's times when, and I'll tell you, it's one of my biggest weaknesses. I struggle with it every day. I'll get an email, and my initial reaction is, well, I'm going to fire back an email to this guy. He's not going to call and tell me how to do it.
Right.
And I've got to take a second. It's one of my, I told you one time about my 7 pillars. One of my 7 pillars is to, take a minute to clear the cache. On an internet browser.
Yeah.
Every now and then you have to go in and clear the cache because things get jumbled up. One of the best lessons my dad ever taught me when email was first starting to become really prevalent was read it twice. If you think it might be perceived wrong, if you think you may have written it from an emotional standpoint, if you think you may regret it later, set it to the side and go back later and read it again. Don't send things right away. Always read it twice and make sure that's what you want to say. And it served me great. I'm not saying I haven't made mistakes. I tell people all the time, my drafts folder, my email drafts folder is a minefield. You could go in there and find some really, I probably should
clear that out once in a while too, right?
But you have to, it's all about how you present it.
Yeah.
And if you spend the time developing those relationships to the point where you can go in and have those conversations, why not take the time to do that? I think people look at, there's a famous sort of management phrase called managing up.
Yeah.
I think people are really scared to do that. I think people are scared to provide critical feedback up the chain of command. And I think it's absolutely critical. I ask for it all the time. But again, you have to know how to do it. But building those relationships to the point that and building trust to be able to do that, it's critical. And it's critical for organizations. Organizations that don't seek feedback are going to continually fail.
You guys still doing all right?
You're doing great.
I'll take another.
Another one?
Yeah. He's talking, so.
You're drinking.
This is going to be a great interview. Look, anytime you can have an interview in a pub.
I absolutely agree.
With an old friend. And
we should hear the glasses clang.
Here we go. There you go, right? To you, my friends. It'd only be better if we were sitting outside, maybe with cigars or something.
And if everybody listening was here.
Except both of you. Mom. Mom, Dad, if you guys were here.
That's awesome.
both my listeners, because my other listeners sitting here being interviewed, so I don't know what's going on. Even my wife doesn't listen to the show.
That's wrong.
It's crazy, right? She goes, I listen to your stuff all the time. I don't need to hear you talk about it. You know, it's interesting. A lot of people, when you think about your alumni association, here's what you know. You go to school somewhere, you graduate, and for the rest of your life, every 6 months, something shows up in your mailbox. You get an email once in a while.
Or a bunch of stuff shows up in your mailbox.
Yeah, forever. And it just becomes clutter and noise and something else, and you unsubscribe. How... You talked about it, though. It's connection.
Yeah.
So let me ask this. Because you talked about there's the connection between industry and the university climate. You talked about how do you engage people who feel a loyalty to a school in an appropriate way. How does that show back up? Look, sports are easy to follow. I've long had a theory, and you could probably tell me the truth behind this, but anytime you have a team that makes a championship run or has a significant season in a major sport, I'd be willing to bet freshman applications, if not enrollment, goes up the following year.
Oh, yeah. Significantly. It
doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what the school is.
There's no hiding behind that. It happens. I mean, you look at the spikes, and the same for alumni membership and engagement and all that stuff. I mean, people want to be part of
you want to be
winning.
Part of something. Yeah. So that creates the challenge, though. Right?
Yeah.
If you have a performance for a while and things fall off, and we could go into, and I don't want to go there today, but we could go into a whole long diatribe about the industry of collegiate sports versus the university, right? Which is it's a divergence, but you mentioned something that's critical to me, and that's the connection.
Yeah.
What do you see as the role, primary role of the modern day alumni association at a university?
I'll tell you, it's that word, it's connection, and it's engagement. I'm going to tell you, whenever I describe sort of outreach for a university, you think about that in three branches. So there's athletics, and like you said, that's the tie that binds everybody.
Let's face it, you're wearing a shirt that's got the logo from Oklahoma State golf, and I'm wearing an Oklahoma State football shirt.
It's what we connect with. I mean, that's what. So athletics brings in a lot of people who may not have gone to the school.
Sure.
It's sort of the public face in many ways of a university. And so that's kind of the tie that binds everybody. Because, the famous saying is, there's not 65,000 people coming back to watch a math contest. I mean, that's what brings people to campus. It's what 7 times every fall, it's what, people see. And then you've got the foundation, and most major universities have some type of endowment where all the money that's given to a university, because philanthropic support at the modern university has become absolutely critical. Okay, let me give you an example.
Okay.
OSU, which is kind of a standard middle of the country land grant institution. They're just it's a sort of typical university when you think about size and mission and all that.
It's a college town.
We're sort of everyman, right? Okay.
Got it.
Oklahoma State's state funding is less than 20% for the first time ever. Okay?
Wow.
To give you some comparison for that, the University of Colorado in Boulder, a state institution, their state funding for this FY16 budget year is less than 2%. So they're basically a completely privatized institution that still has to obey all the state laws, all the state mandates. They still have to, have their budget approved. They still have to have a sitting board of regents or board of governors that's appointed by the state government. All of that is still the same as it was if they were funded 80%. It's crazy. So they've become almost completely private. So private support for the modern university is critical, because no matter what the state decides to do, there are still, at OSU at least, $35 million in scholarships that have to be handed out annually. And so,
say again, $35 million in scholarships.
So that money coming in is critical. So the role of the university foundation is extremely important. And then you've got sort of that third branch. And by the way, the reason that is important to keep going is because no matter what else happened with the university, and even if the leadership of those two organizations got sideways, that money still has to be given. That support still has to be brought in.
Okay.
So that foundation role is extremely important. And then you've got the Alumni Association. And the Alumni Association, at least in the way we're set up, our role is the top of that funnel. So if you think about our role, we're the only ones, besides our membership cost, which we're a member-based organization,
right.
So there has to be, some money paid to do that so that we can serve our constituents. But aside from that, we're the only ones not asking for anything. So if you think about the other two, one, they need ticket sales. There's something they need. Certainly from the endowment side, there's something they need. They're asking.
In Oklahoma State, is that the LSU Foundation?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And they're asking for money.
Sure.
They're not,
of course. No.
They don't hide that.
That's their job.
And then there's us, and really our job is whether you can buy a ticket or whether or not you can make a gift, we want to connect you. Okay, so there's 250,000+ people in the database, and our goal is we want to keep every one of those people connected and excited about what's going on at OSU. And that's if we do our job well,
right.
If we get all 250,000 of those people energized about what's happening at OSU, then I think athletic tickets and support support for the university through scholarships or buildings or whatever else it is they're trying to do, I think those come eventually naturally.
Yeah.
Because when they go to make those decisions, when they go to say, I want to buy a season ticket, or they go to say, I want to give money for a scholarship, well, we've been there all along. Right. We've been telling them about all this great stuff happening the whole time. So by the time they go to be able to make those decisions, they're at a point in their life where they can do that.
Yeah.
That's just what you do.
So I'm going to draw a weird connection. Tell me if I'm totally off base.
Okay.
An alumni association is basically a PR firm.
Oh no, absolutely. There's no doubt.
Right. It's creating awareness. It's establishing relationships. Yeah. It's trying to make introductions. And just trying to make people sort of stay engaged, stay connected, somehow feel like, hey, your university. Your relationship's not over when you leave.
That's right.
Right? I'm an Eagle Scout. They say once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
Right? People that are Marines, once a Marine, always a Marine. And I'd say once you go into your school, that is your school.
It becomes a part of you. I mean, we hope it does at least. I know there's people that, they just want a degree. They don't get into all the stuff. But
or they move someplace where they're so far away.
So let me tell you. So the next question becomes, how do you do that? So how do you keep all those people connected? Okay. Well, we've got 105 chapters and watch clubs around the country. So we set a goal.
It's now up to 105.
It is. Wow. We set a goal to have 80% of our alumni within 50 miles of a way to connect with OSU people. And that's where we are. And so wherever it is our people are, we're trying to create ways for them to get together. There's things like we've relaunched our alumni travel program. So we're offering 8 trips next year where alumni can go, travel with other alumni to these spectacular places around the globe. Our first trip is in January to the Tahitian Islands. It's going to be awesome.
You get to participate in these yourself.
I do. I'm going.
So selfishly, this works in well.
We send a host on every trip, whether it's a dean or somebody from athletics, or Angie and I are going to our cruise next June that goes to Alaska.
Clever.
It just so happens.
Well played, my friend.
The president and first lady are also going.
Nice.
I felt like it was really important that the president not just be stuck out there on his own. I mean, he really, I think, needs to have me go along.
Who wants to put the president on an island?
It's really important for me to be there for him. I mean, I wouldn't go otherwise.
If that's not teamwork, I don't know what it is, right? Somebody had to take that bullet. I'm glad it was you.
And then we've got, all kinds of, we're offering alumni career services now. So alumni that need need to make. So let's take, you and I and sort of our previous lives, where we both, I know, have been faced with opportunities for career change, whether that was forced up on us or we wanted to do that.
Right.
To be able to tap back into your university's career network as an alum, because typically those are set up to just work with students, to get students placed into business.
Right.
Well, now alumni can tap back into those networks. For instance, Higher OSU Grads works with, something like 3,000 employers.
Wow.
For those employers to have the opportunity to post jobs for seasoned professionals is huge for them, and it's huge for us to offer that as a service to our alumni.
Right.
So we get calls all the time from companies saying, I want to hire a 15-year OSU engineer. We love your people. We love Oklahoma State people.
Yeah.
We love hiring your new grads, but what I really need
Somebody with
is
experience.
I need a 20-year CPA is what I really need.
Right.
So for us to match those up is cool. It's great. It's taken off like crazy.
Wow.
So there's just all this stuff we're trying to do to increase that engagement.
Yeah.
And this, we talked earlier about the bowl travel. That's just another way that we can try to provide opportunities for people, regardless of whether or not they're a member.
Right.
So we've really had to change our mentality. So it used to be, and I think membership organizations probably struggle with this sometimes, but especially at a university, it was all about members, and what were we doing to get more members, and what were we doing to serve those members. And while we do that, and we do that in really great ways, we're trying to connect everybody, and we hope that their wanting to become a member becomes a part of them seeing what all this great stuff is that we're doing. Yeah. And it's a real different way to think through that, because it's chicken or egg. Do you try to get the members and then provide them services, or do you provide them services and hope that they become members because of what you're doing for them?
Well, and I've seen a number of, not just alumni associations, I've seen other professional organizations where it's member driven, and you say, do you build your programming or what it is you're about for the people you want or the people you have? And that's the question I hear you asking.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of what perspective. And I'm sure there are plenty of people that say, look, this is what we do. This is where you go. Churches do the same thing.
Sure.
Right? And they'll say, well, if you want to plug in, then here's this, here's that, here's the other. But I think what people hunger for, that everybody wants to be a part of something.
Yeah.
Right? A community.
Yeah.
Right? One of the things that's really cool, and I don't know if it's by accident or if it's by design, or if it's just because I've started paying attention, but like some of my fellow OSU grads that I know that live in New York City, they go to a place called Stillwater Bar, right? You're not a sponsor of the show, Stillwater Bar, but if you'd like to be, I'd be happy to come up and do a due diligence trip.
Stillwater Bar and Grill.
Right? So I want to go up there and check it out, because and I didn't have the opportunity when I was in New York City earlier this year to actually go visit, but I wanted to.
It's awesome.
And can that happen in a lot of other places? I mean, that is a natural, right?
Sure.
Stillwater, for those that don't know, Oklahoma State University is in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And so for a bar to be named after your hometown and be kind of a place that's a home away from home, we need a place like that in Houston. Now, I will tell you that not 5 minutes from my house, there is an incredible little pub called the Hop Scholar Ale House.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of this place?
No.
It's owned by two OSU vet med.
I have heard of it.
Yeah.
I have.
Right? So they own this little bar. It's in my neighborhood, right? It's just down the street. And it's like, I want to see watch parties and stuff happen there. I want that to become a home away from home. I live in the suburbs. I got a wife. I got a little kid. I can't come down to the Heights. I can't come down to the Galleria for a...
Absolutely.
I want to, but Houston in and of itself is a market that's so big.
It's massive.
We should have like 6 sub-chapters.
Okay, so let me tell you what we're doing there.
Tell me about it.
This is great. So, again, this took a complete change in mentality. So, it started...
By the way, let me preface this. there's some great people that have been really committed to the university here in the Houston area.
Oh, yeah.
That have done tremendous work here.
Oh, yeah.
To try to connect people. And, I want to recognize everything that they have done.
Yeah.
I don't want to overlook that. I wouldn't want anybody to feel slighted
No,
because I admire what's going on.
Agree. This is going to build on that. Okay. So
this is a yes and.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to build on what they, and you're right, they're incredibly committed.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for so many years.
Fantastic people.
So this started with our North Texas chapter. So one of the things we did.
North Texas being the Dallas area?
It is. Okay. Yeah, Dallas-Fort Worth kind of operates as one kind of big
that whole
umbrella.
Metroplex
And here's
area.
why.
Okay.
And Denton is even included in that. So
yeah, of course. It should be.
one of the things we realized real quick was, one, we needed a full-time staff person there. It's too big. It's too hard to manage. We have to do it. So we hired a lady that had been working for the OSU Foundation in Dallas, and they were closing that office, so we picked her up. She's absolutely fantastic. Kathy Wilson, may as well give her a shout out. So one of the things Kathy figured out real quick is, okay, let's take a OSU football watch party, okay? So we're going to have an OSU football away game watch party. I can do that in Irving, on a 5 o'clock on a Saturday, or even an evening. Let's say we're going to have an evening event, 6 o'clock on a Thursday night in Irving, and have 20 people there. Or I can have 20 watch parties all over the Metroplex. Find volunteers to help lead those.
Even host them in their house, maybe?
Host them in their house. Yeah. Host them at a bar that a couple of vet med grads own.
Yeah.
Just find somebody that can help you sort of serve as the point person. Welcome, sign in here. We're glad you're here. Here's a sticker. Here's a button. Here's a foam finger, whatever.
Yeah.
Find people to help you set those up and have 25 people at each of those.
Yeah.
So you go from, engaging 20 people in Irving, maybe,
to 250 in the Metroplex.
To 250 all over,
yeah.
Or 500.
Yeah.
If you have 20 locations and 25 people, you got 500 people.
See, that's why I was not a math major.
Sure, me either.
I was financing.
Marketing.
Get it in the ballpark. I'm like, just get it in the ballpark, we're good. The rest of it's calculated.
So the multiple of that just makes sense. And then when you start to talk about community like, I'm ready.
Same thing? Okay.
When you start to talk about a community like Houston, which I think is geographically the largest city in the United States, right? I mean, it's the.
I would imagine.
I think it is.
I think if you look up urban sprawl, there's a picture of Houston.
It's just absolutely. I mean, I'm coming in from Oklahoma yesterday, and from Huntsville basically on.
Yeah, it's fully developed.
That's it. I mean, I can remember going through Conroe, and you had a long way until you got to the Woodlands. You can't even tell now. And so, a community like Houston, this model is absolutely imperative.
Oh, it's huge.
So where we're going to put a full-time staff member here. And that's on our list for next year. And we're going to try to put this same model in place, but it's going to need to be more than 20, I think. I think it's going to need to be, connections being made all over Houston, and it's going to require a very carefully calculated plan. It's going to require a lot of staff support. It's going to require a lot of volunteer support. And I think we're doing it at a time where the energy around the university, is to the point where I think the timing is perfect.
Oh, I think
so. We got to get it done. We have plans for Southern California, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa as well, where we'll have full-time staff really supporting those areas.
Nice.
This could be a model that ends up growing, wherever we have concentrations of alumni. I think it'll be awesome. But you're right on the money. So, they'll do stuff down. I think we used to have watch parties and stuff down by Minute Maid. I mean, that's just.
It's great. It's good if you're young. If you're in your late 20s,
inside the loop.
You're inside the loop. You don't. And I'm not. It's not a complaint because listen. I had I was fortunate enough in my late 20s and early 30s to be living in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time, and I was active on the board there.
Yep.
And helped. We raised a lot of money. We thought for scholarships.
Oh yeah.
Our chapter did $25,000 a year in a night. Raising money on a wine tasting.
Yeah, Vintage O State.
Yeah, it was a fun event.
By the way, so you talk about modeling stuff.
Yeah.
That Tulsa event has led to 6 or 7 of those across the country now.
It was so fun.
And our Dallas, we call it Brighter Orange in Dallas, but it's the same idea.
Don't they do it here?
They do it Brighter Orange here too.
Yeah. Okay.
We're skipping this year and kind of revamping it, but the Brighter Orange event in Dallas has become the largest single event outside of Stillwater of the year, and it's all because of that Vintage O State that you guys started. And Vintage O State in Tulsa is still gigantic.
That's cool.
They've moved now from
it wasn't on campus for a while.
It was, and then it went to the top of the DoubleTree. I think for a while.
We did that. Yeah.
And then they moved to the entire top floor of the Hard Rock Casino.
Oh wow!
And now they're having to move it again. It's it's great.
Awesome.
It is. That's legacy, man. Look at you.
I know, right? Right. Thank you for that. I had the privilege, and it was a privilege to MC that event for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's where you and I really got connected. And people figured out that we were probably separated at birth.
I know.
Right. So, 2 great big dudes that make a lot of noise and wear a lot of orange.
You can't put pictures with a podcast.
Well, actually, we probably could, but we'll take a selfie.
We might scare people.
I'm excited. And this is as a friend, I will tell you, when you and I talked and you let me know that this opportunity had been placed at your feet, I was really excited for you, and I was excited for the university, and I was excited as an alum to know that somebody that has the passion that you have, the orange blood that you have, and the attitude that you have. And I know this is not it's not me just kissing your ass.
Yeah,
it's me saying, you know what, we need somebody who says, look, it's I love my university. My wife went to OSU. I went to OSU. My in-laws went to OSU. And I had a tremendous experience there, and it's a place that's very near and dear to my heart. And to be able to know that somebody like you is helping to lead the charge for what the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years of a legacy will look like, at the university. You're laying at 50 years. You're going to be old by then. But,
I will.
You will be the oldest alumni
director ever.
On the history of Earth.
I appreciate it. It's awesome. And again, one of the things I tell people all the time is I know that it won't always be this way. I know there are ebbs and flows to everything, and I know that there'll be
tough times.
There will be tough times, but right now, while things are going the way they are, we certainly are enjoying reaping those seeds and reaping the benefits of laying those seeds, and it's just a really great time to be a cowboy or a cowgirl. And one of the things I think, kind of you touched on this, but one of the things that makes my job so rewarding is, and it's going to be hard for your listeners that aren't affiliated with Oklahoma State or haven't ever had a chance to visit the Stillwater campus, which they all should, because it's one of the best kept secrets in the country. And there's just something about OSU people. I think there's something about people that attend land-grant universities anyway. Land-grants were originally established by President Lincoln as an opportunity for education for everyone. And so we're kind of the people's university anyway, wherever those land-grant schools are.
By nature, it is an outreach university.
It is. Extension, outreach.
By its design.
That mission of, service to the states where they're located really does come through in its people. And so there's a sort of a bond, and I think OSU is even set apart from the rest of the schools like ours. Just there's something about OSU people that just really makes them special, and it makes them bond together, and it makes them want to be part of all the great things that are happening. They serve their communities where they live. They have a spirit for and sort of a zeal for life that is uncommon, and it's a great opportunity for me to serve a university like this, and to get to work with the kind of people that I do, and going back to having the opportunity to take this job. I followed two people that really were legends in our industry. Jerry Gill, who was in my seat for 35 years, and Larry Schell, who served as his right-hand man for about 30 of those years, and then held the chair for another 6 years. Are as good as it gets. I mean, coming in behind guys like that is really challenging. But the truth of the matter is, there are not very many opportunities to come into an organization. Think about this for a minute. So I had an opportunity to come into an organization that was basically run the exact same way since 1978. Okay, so to come in, I'm not going to lie, they took a risk on hiring a relatively young guy for a job like this, and to come in sort of with my, we talked about it earlier, my level of passion and, boisterousness, and just kind of my attitude is much different from those guys. And so to come into an organization and be able to have an immediate opportunity to sort of breathe life into something that's been done the exact same way for 37 years, it's awesome. And so, we've got a staff that is incredibly passionate and driven for what they do every day. They're underpaid. None of us does this for the money, I assure you. They do it because they love Oklahoma State. They love service. They have a servant mentality, and we drive that every day. I've built my culture around family. I've built it around a spirit of service. I've built it around passion and enthusiasm for what we're doing. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I tell them all the time, we're not solving nuclear fusion here. We're not curing Ebola. This is really great work.
We're not?
We're not. I'm just not. I'm not going to do it.
Well, folks, that's the end of the interview. I'm sorry. I got the wrong guy.
To the Ebola.
You're the wrong Chris. Damn it. Boiled again. At least he's hitting the bar tab.
It's really great work we're doing. There's nothing that should be, we're going to have tough days, but there's nothing that should keep us up nights about what we're doing. You should be able to come to work energized every day. You should be able to go home fulfilled. What a great opportunity. We've got such great things ahead of us, and we're growing. We're going to continue to grow and serve and figure out new ways. You and I have a common bond of this university that I want to make the greatest university in the country. I want them to have to build dorms. I want them to have to build apartments in Stillwater. We're trying to do it, and it's a great mandate.
That's awesome. All right, Chris, we're going to switch gears for just a second.
Okay.
Kind of wrap this up.
All right.
Before this gets really ugly.
We're going to get to Ebola, but we'll shut the tape off.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to solve some other problems here. But I've got a quick something that I haven't done in a little bit, but I call it the lightning round.
Okay.
All right, now, I think there's some words that get thrown around that don't always mean what people think they should mean, but I want to ask you your opinion. All right, what do you think of these words? So we'll start with a couple things.
That was a great Princess Bride reference you just made, by the way, without really knowing. I do not think that word means what you think it means.
You're the first guy to figure out that was the intent. You won the prize.
All right.
That's it.
Let's do it. Lightning round.
Here we go. What is success?
Yeah, I think success is personal fulfillment. I think success is a very individual idea. I think just the definition of that is up to you. It's up to me. It's whatever makes you be able to hit the pillow every night and sleep soundly.
What is happiness?
What's also, in terms of life?
I think happiness is when you think about something in your mind. It's what makes you smile. I think it's what makes you bring a tear to your eye. Again, I think that's a very personal idea. I think that drive for happiness is what makes you passionate about everything you do.
It's a question I haven't been asking, but it just popped in my head. How important is faith?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I think that a lot of times people immediately think of religion when they think of faith. But I think faith extends far beyond just the religious definition of that. I think having faith in your team, I think having faith in your mission, I think faith is this idea of being able to connect with something unseen and unknown, and knowing that when you go around a corner, even though you don't know what's around that corner, that you're going to be all right. And I think that idea comes from having the right people around you. I think it comes from having the right values within your family. I think it comes from having a sound foundation that you operate from every day from a morality standpoint. And I certainly think that there's a piece of that that comes from your spiritual background, whatever denomination or sect that may be, knowing that you believe in something higher than yourself that you can look to for happiness,
okay,
that you can look to for success, all of that. It's a great question.
All right. Two more questions. One, I guess what comes to my mind is, I'll be nice. I won't call it the Wayback Machine. Let's go in the looking back machine.
Okay.
Go back and look at the 25-year-old Chris Batchelder.
Okay.
What advice do you give yourself?
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one of the pieces of advice I would give myself is to have a little more patience. I think at 25, ironically, I was living in Houston. It was 1998. I had the good fortune of having my twin daughters born that year, and I think I looked at all that. I'm in a job I didn't really like. I'm in a city that was, still felt very unknown to my wife and I. I have these tiny little people now that are relying on me that were born 9 weeks early, and I looked around and I kind of hit the panic button a little bit, and I'm glad I did, because I wound up at Oklahoma State through all that process. But I think just knowing that I had positioned myself, that everything was going to be all right, great family, great friends. I mean, I think I didn't rely on enough people. I was trying to make it on my own and kind of stubborn about that. And so I think looking back, I would have advised myself to be a little bit more patient. But I'll tell you the other thing I would have advised myself to do. I would have advised myself to take the time to get to know everybody around me, professionally and personally, better. Like, I look at my job at Foley's and I wish I would have really taken time to get to know my managers better, to get to know their managers better, and really learn that industry. I had a job and I just sort of did it. I wasn't really seeking knowledge at that time, and I really wish I would have done that a little more. Not that I wanted to stay in retail forever, but I really feel like I missed an opportunity to really seek knowledge from those around me. Not in a kiss-ass way or not in a cheesy way, but to really learn from people. I have really enjoyed, in the later stages of my career, learning from people. I really love hearing people's stories. I love learning about different ways to do things. I think one of the things that's changed for me is I realize there's so many more perspectives than mine. I've really tried to put, one of the things we have to do in the job I'm in now is we have to, this is another one of my pillars.
Right.
It's called start at the end, okay? So my dad taught me one time, I was asking him about a problem I had, and he said, let me tell you something. Nobody wants a 1/4-inch drill bit. What they want is a 1/4-inch hole. The drill bit is just the way to get what they really want. You need to start by figuring out what it is people really want. What is it they really need? And then figure out how to do it. And we're always trying to think of the drill bit. We're trying to think of the drill. We're trying to say, we've got the idea. They need to accept it. Well, why don't you find out what it is people really want and figure out the ways to provide that? And so I think too often we don't take the time to really learn about other people's perspectives and learn what it is that they could be teaching us all along. And I didn't take the time to do that when I was young.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right, last question.
Okay.
You're on a deserted island, probably on an alumni junket of some sort.
Okay.
But you're by yourself for a little while, and you're going to be stuck there. They're going to leave you there. They decided, you know what, Chris?
Okay.
We're glad you got us here, but you're not going back with us. And you've got this magical coconut that you can listen to for the rest of your life, and it only has one album on it.
Oh, wow.
What album do you have to listen to for the rest of your life?
What a great question. I'm not even going to hesitate. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' Greatest Hits.
Wow.
Love Tom Petty. That's awesome. I've been talking about this a lot lately.
Yeah?
There's a Tom Petty station on XM now.
Right.
And I found out through the years that people are really hot and cold on Tom Petty. I've got people I work with that think he's just too whiny for them. I can't believe it. I've never heard that.
Well, there you have it, folks. Tom Petty in a coconut for the rest of your life.
You know the greatest song? What do you think the #1 greatest song of all time is? What's your #1 greatest song of all time? Tell the listeners.
The #1 greatest song.
You want a minute to think about it while I tell them mine?
Yeah, tell me yours.
My #1 greatest song of all time, Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard by Paul Simon.
Wow, what a great one.
It's a great one.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Won't Back Down by Tom Petty is going to be in the top 5 of that list.
That's good. That's good. One song that I can't crank it up enough. I don't know. It gets to me. I feel it. It's always good. Is Sultans of Swing.
Oh, great choice.
Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits.
I'm telling you, Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Dire Straits is a great band.
Great stuff.
Mark Knopfler, he's an underrated singer-songwriter.
Yeah, I agree. Well, with that, we'll leave it with a Mark Knopfler quote here at the end. You may know the song as it was covered by a country artist, but sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug.
That's right.
Chris,
Good.
thanks for being here.
Well done.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. Well, folks, I hope you had as much fun today with that interview as I did when I sat down with Chris just a few weeks ago, back in December. Whether you are part of an alumni association or there's something near and dear to your heart, I hope you learned something from today about the power of connection. And there's so many lessons embedded in what he said. And I got to tell you, as I was editing this episode, just going back, I think some of the things that Chris dropped on us there in the lightning round, just right in the last 5 or 10 minutes of the interview, are probably some things to think about. And the one that sticks in my head is the lesson he learned from his dad. And so often we get fixated on what people think they want, but what they're really looking for is a particular result. So another way to rephrase, to go back and use what Chris talks about early in the interview when he talks about approaching the athletic director about how they could partner up together, would be to ask somebody, do you really want a 1/4-inch drill bit, or are you trying to build a 1/4-inch hole? Thanks for listening. Share this episode with somebody. If you enjoyed what you just heard, please post your 5-star review and subscribe to Success Charger today. Your future is waiting.